is an instruction video for the volunteers for first, second, and third shift for our pads. This is for the providing shelter for the homeless people in Morris, Illinois. And I'm going to go over what is in the pads box. The site coordinator will be picking up the pads box in the evening, bringing it over when he opens up the site, and then also taking it in the morning back to WeCare or the next site. Inside the pads box, we have, first of all, our master binder. We'll go over what's in the master binder. There's a lot of good information in here for the volunteers. Next, we have the card file, and this is where we keep track of the individual guests who have come before or new guests that we have them register on here so that we can keep track of them. We have a breathalyzer, and there's instructions here. This is like a digital breathalyzer, on or off, as far as whether that'll tell you whether the individual either has alcohol in their bloodstream or not. If that doesn't work, we have a more detailed one, and this actually gives the percentage of alcohol content in the bloodstream. And this is more complex to operate, but these are the tubes to which you would fasten here. And we can go through this later on too, because this is a little more complex to use than that one. And then also one of the things we keep here is our shift incident report. In the shift incident report, anything that we find interesting or information that's important. For instance, if someone wants a wake-up call in the morning, so that the third shift people can know that they have to wake up an individual. Also identify where they're sleeping. That's always helpful. And then also if another individual is going to be coming in late the following evening, that's a good thing to write in the book so that the volunteers on the first or second shift, depending upon when the individual arrives, can make note of that and not be surprised when somebody comes in late. Now we're going to cover what is in the master binder for the pads volunteers, and I wanted to point out a few things in the binder that will be important to the volunteers. First of all, when you open it up, it will have a listing of the local area warming centers. This was from last year. It may not be current for the years to come, but we'll have this updated and it'll be in here, and you can pass those out to the guests. This is a guest intake form. Now this will be coupled with one of the index cards that we use for the individuals. In the front here are spare index cards. What we ask is the individual guest, if they're new, they'll need to fill out this registration intake form and also the card file for the individual. As you can see here, it's a relatively small picture that's going to be needed for the person, the guest, and in the master binder, it does show a picture, how to take the picture, what size we would need, and this shows it. This is the size that we want of someone's face, not the smaller ones. Since you can see that this is so small, we do want to have a larger picture of that individual's face. Also in here we'll have a guest handout for the pads guests that are coming in. It has some rules and then also the maps of basically where we have the sites throughout the week. The second shift volunteers will have to make the lunch menu for the lunch bags for the guests that come in. And this is a form that we use that makes it a little easier for the second shift volunteers to make the meals for the guests so that in the morning when they leave they can pick up their meals. And also in the master binder we have the manual. We'll have a current copy of the manual in the front of the binder. In the front of the binder also we have emergency contact sheets. Now these will be the site coordinators, some of the PADS officers, and important telephone numbers that you need for contacting individuals in case an issue arises and you have any questions. First thing should be always to call your coordinator first. Unless it's something like that's really threatening, you feel threatened, or you feel like you need to get the police out here right away, then call 911. We always stress that because the safety of the volunteers and other guests is paramount. So this PAD site is the Peace Lutheran Church, and Sunday and Monday nights, that's when we host the homeless coming in and provide the shelter for them during the cold weather. So what we're going to do, we're going to have Tammy come through the door. She's going to show you, she's going to represent a guest coming in. I'm going to represent a volunteer on first shift who is taking her in and showing her what to fill, or how to fill it out, how to register, and get her started here. So she would knock on the door here at Peace Lutheran. Come in, and so Tammy, welcome. Here's if you're looking for shelter, this is the shelter for the evening. We'll ask that you would fill out these forms. One of them is the guest intake form, and the other is the card that we put in the index file. And this is all the information we're looking to collect on you, and it's just to be able to provide knowledge for our volunteers, and in case that there's some emergency we need to contact someone to help you out. And also here is a guest handout. We'll ask the new guests to read the handout, and at the bottom, before they sign the bottom portion of this intake form. Okay? So if Tammy if she's a new guest, we still put her name here when she arrived. But if she's a returning guest, then we would just check the index file to make sure there's nothing outstanding for her staying here. There's going to be nothing here in the band list for the PADS guests, and then we would just register here. That's the same thing, as I said, for whether they're new or they're returning guests. That's what we would do. This just keeps track for the volunteers on the following shifts, the second and third shift, so that they know how many individuals are spending the night. Now I wanted to talk about the breathalyzer. Okay, so this is the breathalyzer that we're going to be using 99% of the time for guests coming in. As you can see here, there's the on-off button. We'll push that button. We'll wait for the green light to illuminate here, telling us that it's ready to use the breathalyzer. Once it turns green, the individual will blow into this end of it until you hear a click. They would bring it up a couple inches from their mouth. Do not touch the end of it, as I said. Make sure the green light is illuminated. They will take a breath and blow until they hear the click. Once the click comes in, now the breathalyzer is analyzing their blood alcohol level, and if it's green, there is no blood or no alcohol in the bloodstream. All right. I want to talk about the breathalyzers, the breathalyzer test for guests coming in. These are for the first shift volunteers. I'm reading from the volunteer manual. We're asking all guests that are over 18 years old, you have to use the yellow breathalyzer. If it shows green or yellow, that means that they're below 0.02 on the alcohol limit. In that case, they're good to stay, they can stay. If it's red, then it's up to you to make a call based upon their behavior, or you can use the black breathalyzer, which gives you a detailed number of what it is. And you can see if they're above or below the 0.08 limit. I'm going to read what the manual says here. All guests over 18 years must submit to the yellow breathalyzer test. If they fail that test, you can refuse them admittance based upon their behavior, or use the newest breathalyzer to get a specific reading. So the red light does not say they're above 0.08. It says they're above 0.02. And we're trying to stress that it's important to determine their behavior or to assess their behavior and there you can allow them entrance or not based upon that. So if Tammy were a new guest coming in, I would take a headshot picture of her and then check it to see that it's mostly covering her head so that we can get it on the index card and it'll be nice and big so that the following volunteers will be able to see. So Tammy arriving in, she would take one of these pads and we could give her assistance with that. There's also a linen pack here from the Morris Hospital that'll have the sheets and also the pillowcase and a towel. And here are the pillows. That she would take one of these with her and one of these linen sheets. Okay. So typically speaking, if Tammy's going to be coming back again, we will have a black garbage bag on which she would put her name, and then she would be able to reuse the blankets, and that way it's just easier for returning guests to do that each evening, so they know that they have the same blanket and they don't have to worry about any issues there. She would select the sleeping area based on the male or the female side of this Peace Lutheran Church. We're going to simulate that this is just where we're going to be bed down the women for the evening. It's important as a first shift volunteer to know where Tammy, if she wants a wake-up call in the morning, where she's sleeping, so we don't disturb the other guests unnecessarily. So she would, if she selected this spot, then she'd put her linens and pillowcase and a pillow down here, and this would be where she would be spending the evening. So the first shift person, as you've seen through the video, they will come in, they will check in the guests as they arrive. If it's a new guest, they'll take care of making sure they get registered, take the picture of them, the headshot, so that we can get it on the index card. Then they will help them showing where the pads are located and where the linens and pillows are. Then, typically speaking, like for Peace Lutheran Church, we will divide the women into an area, the men into another area, and have them bed down for the evening. Then the coordinator will they will have contacted Morris Hospital, gone and picked up the evening meals, and bring them back to the pad site. The first shift volunteers are asked to help in serving the meals and make sure that the tables are wiped down and the leftovers are put in the refrigerator and items are discarded as needed that are not used. First shift volunteers will monitor the guests after the meals are served, make sure that everybody's getting along just fine, and then between 10 and 11 o'clock, they'll be encouraging the guests to go lie down and lights out. Lights out is at 10 o'clock at night, and we'll turn off the lights. So the TV should be off. Nobody should be sitting in the common room with lights on. The second shift will be coming in at 10:45. We're asking you to come in 15 minutes early so that there can be a little bit of turnover and making sure that the first shift understands that they have a relief getting in there and they don't have to call the site coordinator because nobody is showing up. The second shift individuals will be taking that sheet that I showed about the lunch meals. They'll be making the lunch meals, putting them in paper bags and putting them in the refrigerator for the next morning when the guests are leaving to take their lunch with them. The second shift volunteers will just be keeping an eye on things, making sure that the area is quiet and safe for the guests and the volunteers. What's expected of the guests is that they clean their own pad and pillow and put their linens away. The volunteers on the third shift are there just to remind them of that, and also to assist if they need that. However, it's not expected that the volunteers are going to be doing any of the cleaning of the pads themselves. So the guests would just remove their used linens, then they'll spray down their pad and their pillow, wipe that off with paper towels, and they'll discard these paper towels when they're finished. They'll take their used linens and deposit them in the collection bin, and then they'll take the pad and the pillow and return those to the storage area, along with the cleaning solution, which should be in the storage area also. For each church, it's going to be a little bit different, but as far as the locations go, but the cleaning of the pads and the pillow and putting away the linen, that is all consistent. Okay, and now the last thing I want to cover is for the volunteers. Number one priority is safety. You need to be safe for yourself and for the guests and the site. If you have any issues at all, any issues with any guest, or something just doesn't feel right, I encourage you, call your site coordinator. That's the top thing. We are more concerned about safety than anything else with these homeless shelters. Thank you very much.